Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. So in today's video we're going to talk about a vessel with many names. Some of us know her as the MS Pacific or the Sea Venture, but most of us know her as the Pacific Princess, or even better, as the Love Boat. The ship was retired from service when renovation work proved far more expensive than expected. She was sold in 2012 to a ship-breaking company, but after that sale fell through, she remained laid up in Genoa for a long period, waiting for her fate. Eventually, she was towed to Alaya, where she arrived on the 6th of August 2013 for demolition. Hello everybody, it's Jamie from Old Shipping Lines, and in today's video we're going to talk about the full story of the Love Boat, from her beginnings as the MS Pacific, to her career as the famous Pacific Princess, and finally to her last days at the Scrapyard. The ship was built for flagship cruises in 1971 by Nordseewerke, located in Emden, West Germany. Let's quickly go over the specifications of this vessel. The ship's gross tonnage would be 19,903 gross registered tons. Her length would be 67.74 meters, which is 550 feet, 4 inches. Her beam would be 24.59 meters, which is again 80 feet 8 inches. The ship's speed would be 20 knots. The ship was launched on 9th May 1970 and began operations in 1971 under the name Sea Venture. Her maiden voyage took place on the 8th of May 1971. She operated cruises between the United States and Bermuda, a location historically settled by the survivors of the wreck of the original Sea Venture in 1609. During her service as Sea Venture, she notably came to the aid of Cunard's Queen Elizabeth II in 1974, after the liner experienced major engine trouble. In April 1975, she was sold to P&O's newly acquired Princess Cruises, along with her sister ship, Island Venture. Both ships were subsequently renamed. The Sea Venture became the Pacific Princess, and the Island Venture became the Island Princess. The transformation of the Pacific Princess into a global icon began in 1977 with the debut of the television series The Love Boat. Princess Cruises agreed to have their ships featured in the show, which started as a made-for-TV movie in 1976 before becoming a regular series. While other princess ships occasionally appeared, the Pacific Princess was the primary vessel featured in most episodes across the show's 9-year run. The series, which followed the romantic and comedic adventures of passengers and crew, was filmed primarily on sound stages, but it frequently used exterior footage of the actual Pacific Princess, and occasionally filmed scenes on board. The impact of this show cannot be overstated. The Love Boat is widely credited with transforming public perception of cruise travel in North America. It took cruising from a niche, often formal, vacation, and rebranded it as an accessible, fun, and romantic experience for everyone. The term Love Boat was heavily used by Princess Cruises in their marketing. It became completely synonymous with the Pacific Princess. For millions of viewers, this ship was cruising. She represented escape, adventure, and the promise of love. Her distinctive profile, with a dark blue hull and a white superstructure, became one of the most recognizable silhouettes on the water. During this peak era, the ship's capacity was listed at 646 passengers. She offered the amenities that were glamorized on television: elegant dining rooms, sunny decks, and a sense of perpetual vacation the success of the upbeat television show, which remained on the air until 1986, created a lasting association. For decades after the show ended, the Pacific Princess continued to trade on her fame, often referred to simply as the Love Boat by passengers and maritime enthusiasts alike. The ship was a floating piece of pop culture history. However, while the ship represented carefree romance on television screens, the realities of maintaining an aging vessel and the pressures of the cruise industry were beginning to create shadows behind the glamour. The world of perfect weather and happy endings was about to face a much more complicated reality. The pristine image of the Love Boat was about to be tarnished by a very real-world scandal. In November of 1998, while the Pacific Princess was in the port of Piraeus, Greece, police conducted a search of the vessel. What they discovered was a long way from the light-hearted plots of the television show. Authorities found 25 kilograms of heroin hidden on board. The investigation revealed that the drugs were being smuggled by members of the Filipino crew, according to police sources quoted in a BBC report at the time. There was evidence suggesting the ship had become a major tool for drug smugglers operating in the Mediterranean. This was a harrowing discovery that stood in stark contrast to the ship's public persona. The vessel that had represented romance and escape was now impounded. The ship's name associated with international narcotics trafficking for Princess Cruises, it was a public relations disaster, and for the ship itself, it marked the beginning of a tangible decline in its reputation. This incident was a symptom of larger challenges. The Pacific Princess was, by the late 1990s, an aging vessel. Her design was from a different era of cruising, and the costs associated with maintaining her and updating her to meet modern standards were escalating. The cruise industry was rapidly evolving, with newer, larger, and more efficient ships entering service. The classic liner that had once been a pioneer was becoming a relic. Her final chapter with Princess Cruises was approaching. She was sold in 2001, but was leased back to the company to continue operations for one more year. The Pacific Princess made her final voyage under the Princess banner in October and November of 2002, a repositioning cruise from New York City to Rome, Italy. It was the end of an era. The ship that had been the face of the brand for over a quarter century was retired, and a former Renaissance Cruises vessel, the R3, would take her name. The Love Boat's long association with Princess was over. With her Princess career concluded, the ship began a new, much less stable phase of her life. She was purchased by the Brazilian travel company Viagens CVC, and her name was shortened simply to Pacific. The ship began operating under charter to Pullmantur Cruises of Spain, primarily sailing itineraries in the Caribbean. This was a significant step down from her former glory. Her capacity was increased to 780 passengers, and her cruising speed was reduced to 18 knots. She was now serving a different market, one focused more on value than the premium experience she once offered. Her operational life became fragmented. She was chartered to sail for CVC in Brazil during the Southern Hemisphere summer, and then for a newly established company called Quail Cruises in Spain during the northern summer of 2008. However, this arrangement was short-lived. The ship's age was catching up with her. When Quail Cruises attempted to undertake necessary renovation work, they discovered the costs were far greater than had been anticipated. The investment required to keep the Pacific commercially viable was simply too high. This financial strain culminated in a decisive event in 2008. The Pacific was seized by the Italian Coast Guard while in the port of Genoa. The seizure was not related to Quail Cruises, but rather to an unpaid repair bill owed to the San Giorgio del Porto shipyard by the vessel's previous owners. Templeton International Inc. Quail Cruises argued the debt was much lower than reported and unrelated to them, but the ship was held nonetheless. The Pacific was now trapped in legal limbo. Italian authorities attempted to sell the ship at auction 3 separate times between 2010 and 2011 to satisfy the debt, but they received no bids. The once celebrated vessel sat idle in Genoa, a stationary and decaying monument to her past. Her white superstructure began to show signs of neglect, a stark contrast to the gleaming image she presented on television. In March of 2012, it seemed a resolution had been found. The ship was sold for 2.5 million euros, approximately $3.3 million, to a Turkish ship-breaking company called Semsan Shipbreaker. However, this sale too would fall through when Semsan defaulted on its payment. By May of 2012, the Pacific was once again put up for sale, her future more uncertain than ever. She remained laid up in Genoa, a ghost ship waiting for a final, inevitable decision. The glamorous world of the Love Boat had faded into a protracted and undignified decline, a prelude to a final voyage that would be her most tragic. The Pacific remained laid up in Genoa for over a year, a silent and decaying presence in the busy Italian port. Her condition deteriorated with each passing month of inactivity. The legal and financial issues that kept her trapped were complex, involving multiple previous owners and unresolved debts. It was a far cry from the constant motion and celebration that had defined her prime. Finally, a resolution emerged. After the failed sale to Kemsan, the ship was acquired by the Izmir Ship Recycling Company. In May of 2013, the sale was finalized for the same price as the previous defaulted deal, 2.5 million euros. The fate of the vessel that had once been the Pacific Princess was now sealed. She was to be towed to Turkey and dismantled. The irony was profound. The ship that had been synonymous with love, romance, and the joy of travel was now destined for the scrapyard, her value reduced to the raw materials of her steel hull. Preparations began for her final journey, a tow across the Mediterranean that would mark the end of her story. In late July of 2013, the Pacific began her last voyage. No longer under her own power, she was taken under tow for the journey from Genoa to the scrapyards of Aliaya, Turkey. It was a slow, passive procession, a stark contrast to the purposeful cruises of her past. On August 6, 2013, she arrived at her final destination. The ship that had sailed to glamorous ports around the world for over 40 years was now beached at the breaker's yard. The process of dismantling the vessel began almost immediately. However, just 4 days after her arrival, on August 10, 2013, a tragic accident occurred. A compartment below the ship's engines had flooded. While electrical pumps were operating to remove the water, a group of workers were overcome by toxic exhaust gases. The incident resulted in a heartbreaking outcome. 2 men lost their lives, and 9 others were hospitalized. This fatal event added a layer of profound tragedy to the ship's end. The love boat, a symbol of happiness for so many, had become the site of a real-life disaster. The dismantling work continued through 2013 and into 2014. By February, the ship was reported to be half to two-thirds gone, and by the end of that year, the demolition was complete. The physical structure of the Pacific was gone, and that brings us to the end of the story of the Pacific Princess, a vessel that lived many lives. From her early days, her golden era as the love boat, and finally to her tragic final days at the scrapyard. She wasn't just a ship, she was a symbol of romance, adventure, and the magic of cruising, even if her last chapter was far removed from the glamour she once represented. And that marks the end of a video, my friends. Thank you all so very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Now, if you liked what you saw, please consider subscribing to the channel, as that would help out the channel a lot. Now, if you have any thoughts, comments or questions, please leave them in the comment section down below, as I absolutely love reading your comments. And please let me know in the comment section down below as well what ships you would like me to cover in the future. Now be as well sure to check out our social media pages. We are on Twitter, we are on Instagram, and we also recently have a website, oldshippinglines.com, where we have articles of the ships we cover and we have book reviews as well. I think you will enjoy the website very much. Now, with that out of the way, guys, I wish you all a good night or day, wherever you are. Stay safe, stay happy, and we will see each other on the next video. Goodbye, my friends.